So we have here a very special opportunity. For those of you who are not familiar with this organization, I think you're going to be very impressed with Backline. And we have with us the very impressive Executive Director Hilary Gleason. Welcome to the show, Hilary.
Thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. So when we were hearing from our interviewees, the various musicians we've had on the show, who were being brave enough and courageous enough to share, their mental health story, and how they, persevere through it. We started to think about pulling together a day like we're doing today, and also then searched for organizations that would be supportive, not necessarily even expecting that there'd be one out there specifically dedicated to the music industry. So we were thrilled to learn about it. We wanted to share it, and then you guys were kind enough to agree to be part of the day. So we wanted to kind of share here. So this is basically like the who we are. Backline is a 501c3 nonprofit that connects music industry professionals and their families with mental health and wellness resources. We want to build a safer and more supportive music industry by helping our community access quality mental health care providers that understand this line of work. And then their mission statement is to connect music industry professionals and their families with a trusted network of mental health and wellness providers. So that's a little background on there. But Hilary, if you don't mind maybe telling us a little bit of story about kind of like the origin, from what I understand there, this even for you personally was stemming from your connection to the bluegrass community and the loss of two people, where you felt like there was more that could be done to maybe have outreach for the various people who are struggling.
Yeah, I am fortunate to be one of 8 co-founders of Backline, so it was certainly a collective effort. All of the co-founders had some connection to the industry, and in our various communities had witnessed loss, whether it's suicide, drug overdose, even just inability to continue making music, is certainly a tragic thing that happens sometimes. And in the summer of 2019, we had a few direct losses in my community and those of my co-founders, where we just started to talk about this. And I was getting a lot of calls from friends all over the country in different roles in the industry. And I think I was on the receiving end of those calls, having a background in nonprofits
Sure.
and generally showing up to be a problem solver and helper. But, I recognized I was not the only person getting those calls. And there was a real draw, I think, for myself and the folks that ended up being co-founders to have these conversations in a collective space. And rule number 1 of nonprofits is don't start a nonprofit. So that was certainly not the intention when we started to have these conversations.
Sure.
But as we set up conference calls with folks from across the industry, we talked to a lot of the organizations that served pieces of this puzzle and realized there was not one place to go that was could refer you out to different organizations for different needs in terms of mental health and wellness. So there are a bunch of amazing orgs that we now are partnered with that offer financial assistance or substance abuse treatment, all sorts of different things, but it's hard to navigate what you're eligible for. And
Sure.
Running a Google search when you are struggling with your mental health is really challenging.
Absolutely. I mean, like the hardest person to self-advocate would be someone who's struggling with a mental health issue. Like that's part of the difficulty is getting yourself up and out of that hole.
Exactly. So we wanted to make that easier, to find resources that were specifically catered for folks in the music industry. And what we launched with was a case management program that, we've done the legwork to understand the different eligibility requirements, offerings, as well as build out a provider network. We now have over 650 mental health providers who have experience and understanding of the music industry. So when we are referring people out to these different resources, we know that they're going to be met with a general understanding of this lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we've put like 1,700 people through that program since 2019. So,
wow.
our launch date and our origin story is feeling farther and farther away these days. We're
Sure.
like, in a world where Backline has existed and
Mm-hmm.
people have had a place to go and get safe, confidential help for 4 years now.
Sure.
But I certainly hold our dearly departed, close to me as we continue to do this work, and really respect and honor their contributions, both while they were here and their continued legacy through Backline.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, let's talk a moment about like the music industry, some of those stigmas that would come along with asking for help when, let's say it's, rock and roll. It has the stigma of like, if you're wounded in some way, like, there's an element to it where there might have an aspect that would feel like they couldn't put that guard down. I have to walk around like I have it all together, or like I don't really care, or whatever, like these other different things that I'm sure, again, the professionals are looking out for, but also just that person having that, element to maybe the character they play of themselves on stage, or even the the people around them thinking they're not in hurt or in struggle because of the way they carry themselves, to make sure that they give that person that space and that room to be down or to be, hurting.
Yeah, the music industry is a challenging one. I mean, we've heard a lot of sayings come out of the industry, from the show must go on to, from great heartbreaks come great albums. Like,
Right.
there are a lot of cliches in this industry that ring true, I think, for a lot of folks. Affordability of this kind of care has been an
Sure.
issue for a really long time. And so I think part of what we're doing now is letting people know that we're taking affordability questions out of
Sure.
part of the reason you shouldn't get help. But there are certainly folks that are afraid to lose their darkness, right?
Yep.
Their identity is tied
Yeah.
in some way to this struggle. And that is where all of the music has come from up to a certain point. So I think there's a creative fear around, if everything in my life gets better, what am I going to write about? But
I'd rather see us try that one, and I'll have faith that the art will
exactly.
still come. I think another one is that started to hit me as I thought about it more and more is you're touring, so you're not surrounded by a foundation of loved ones who can recognize you're starting to maybe trend in a dangerous or darker direction. You're surrounded by total strangers who maybe think this is normal for you. Or how are you going to have help when you're going across state lines and a lot of this stuff is state regulated?
Those are all very real challenges. We do serve a lot of touring folks. We also serve people at home. And I think, as rigorous as touring is and the difficulties there are people at home who also mask this from their
Sure,
loved
of
ones,
course.
and it's hard to get help there. There are a lot of unique pieces to it, which is, I think, part of what we've really focused on, is that there is no one size fits all here. What is going to work for a touring artist might not work for their agent or their crew person or even another artist in the band. So we try to have just like a variety of modalities. Not everybody needs a therapist. Some people do need a therapist that's willing to work with them while they're on tour via telehealth. Certainly the pandemic has made that a bit easier
Sure.
To navigate now, but the state regulations are very much a real thing that we have to navigate often with our clients. But I think, yes, touring makes it extra hard. Lack of privacy is a lot of it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I
Sharing
think,
hotel rooms or in cars constantly, never by yourself, to be able to do that. Yeah, I can so totally see that.
yeah, and even if you want to do therapy, where are you doing that if you're in a van, traveling long distances?
Sure.
The other thing about not being around loved ones is that itself is a stressor.
Yes.
So it's not just that they can be, your support system and look out for any significant changes, but it's also, you have this added layer of really missing out on things at home.
Yeah.
Certainly a challenge for parents who are
Yep.
touring professionals, but it exists across the board. And I travel a lot for work, and it's hard to build community at home when that's the case. So you get home and all of a sudden there's no one around you sometimes. And that can feel really staggering, in that you're, constantly surrounded by people, then you're fully alone and you don't necessarily have a community there at home. So
Sure.
we see it all. There's like
Hmm.
so many contributing factors.
Absolutely.
Sleep
I could even
is a
think that,
huge one.
sure, sleep, or even just when the tour is done. So you went through these highs of adrenaline and what have you, and confirmation of the people are enjoying your art, to now having it over. That's got to be difficult too. Or even another one
Yeah.
that dawned on me is you're constantly surrounded by vices. So if you're,
Yep.
a recovered alcoholic, or substance abuse is in your history, and now you're suddenly in bars and in all these areas, like, it's got to be so difficult with the constant presence of that.
Yeah. It's really, there's so many things to get swept up in this
Sure.
industry.
So we've covered there, like, the complexity of this particular industry and all these different, either presences or absences of things that only just make it that much more challenging. Let's talk, before we head into the website to kind of point people in the direction of how they could ask for help. Let's talk about who could be eligible, because it's not just the musicians, it's their family members, and then even more so, it's the industry. So if you don't mind touching on that.
Yeah, we intentionally launched with really large eligibility requirements, recognizing the huge ecosystem that is responsible for bringing music to fans like me. That includes, people that work in studios. That
Sure.
includes the security staff at the venue,
Hmm.
tour bus drivers, photographers who often don't have a band that they work for. They often don't have representation. So
Sure.
there's a lot of folks in the industry who don't have any sort of collective that they're a part of. We want to make sure that they are also included in this. And the inclusion of families is incredibly intentional.
Hmm.
My coworker or co-founders and I really know that lifestyle. I was
Hmm.
the partner of a touring musician for years, and got a front row seat to how challenging that role can be. And recognizing if your partner or your sibling or your parent is really struggling with these things and doesn't have access to quality care and doesn't have support in navigating this space, that also affects your ability to go make music.
Sure.
And so this ecosystem is interconnected in so many ways, and we believe each and every person that is a part of it is worthy and deserving of quality care, and we know that we can provide that. And our case management system, it's easy. It's
Sure.
easy to navigate.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have a
Let's
great
bring up the site.
database.
Yeah, and you can talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit more, the different services provided. So this is the homepage, and you can see here what we offer: case management, support groups, education resources, and wellness.
Yep. Case management is our bread and butter program. It's just a matter of filling out a form on the website that has a little bit of information. You're then automatically going to receive a link to schedule time with one of our case managers, all of whom are mental health professionals that have an understanding of the music industry. We do a quick intake call to understand what you're looking for, what you've tried, if you need a specific type of provider, whether that's an additional layer of training or a specific background, as well as what you can afford. So
Sure.
we are really getting specific about what people's needs are and what their resources are, so that we can make a care plan that takes into account what they can afford, how often they want to go, what kind of providers or partnerships or groups that they want to go to. When you get off that call, your case manager immediately gets to work in compiling a care plan built specifically for you. So you get a PDF email with all of the different resources that we think are a great fit for you. Here's 4 therapists that match what you're looking for, that are licensed in the state where you live. Some of them offer teletherapy. We're really going in and getting nitty gritty.
Sure.
And our provider network, 650 or so providers across all 50 states. Many of them are licensed in multiple states. Many of them now offer teletherapy. We also have life coaches, sober support, financial aid resources, you name it. Come to us, tell us what it is that you're struggling with or what you need if you know that. But sometimes people don't exactly know what they need. Just like, I
Sure.
need to make a change.
Yep.
And that's exactly what our case managers are here for. I see it as your friend who understands both the mental health care landscape and the music industry. So it's a really safe, confidential conversation. And it also takes out the need to tell your bandmate or manager or someone,
Right.
you can maintain confidentiality in this if sharing with the people that you live and work most closely with is not feel like helpful to your
Sure.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's some great stats here. Basically, almost 15,000 resources accessed, almost 500 support group sessions, almost 1,500 case management submissions, and 10,000 wellness event attendees. So, and that's and counting. Every time you come here, it's going up. Then there's some testimonials here and whatever, like some different things to kind of touch on. Let's go to this get help area, because I think this was showing, like you just touched on, what happens when you get there. This is how easy it is. You just come here, you click on get help, and you click on the one whether you want the case manager or the join the group. And if you don't know, then you just go ask for help. So it is that we'll say it's easy, but it may not be. But it is this much of a click is away is when the help is.
Yeah, connect with the case manager. Why don't you click on that? That's really, so it outlines our eligibility requirements here. And then the form. So once the form is pretty short. It's going to take you about a minute and a half to fill this out. And then hit submit. And then you're looking for either a text message or an email based on what your selection is there that has, a scheduling link. So you can automatically go in and say, okay, I'll talk to my case manager on Tuesday at 2 p.m. We generally have a lot of availability for case management calls, so you can get on a call the next day. It's really easy. It works wonderfully. All of the testimonials that we've gotten from this program speak to the life-changing resource that this is, where you take away the guesswork and you actually get to talk to a real human who's building you something that is really like a roadmap to care. Our support groups have become another important part of our work. We actually didn't see them coming, didn't really plan to launch support groups, but we launched them the first week of the pandemic in 2020, recognizing that people just needed a safe space to convene. And
it does seem like often the fact that you don't feel alone is a huge, like, foundational help in and of itself.
Definitely. And, for music people, sometimes the struggles don't feel like you can talk to your friend who works a regular 9 to 5 about them, because there is still just like a gap in our lifestyle. And so the support groups, everybody there works in music, and there's therefore, a baseline understanding of some of these different things. And people come into the groups and talk about all sorts of different challenges, substance abuse, sexual addiction, partnership issues. I don't know how to communicate with my band right now. We're really in a tough time. It's a safe space to have those conversations. All of our groups are moderated by licensed professionals. And so if there is a need to get you additional care or escalate the conversation, we are on, in the group week over week to do that. But they've been a really powerful program for us. And then wellness goes hand in hand with all of this. And like we said, there's no one size fits all. So sometimes people are just looking to improve their day-to-day life. And we have a whole suite of wellness partners that have made their platforms accessible to music industry folks. So you can get a free yoga on demand subscription, breath work, meditation, all of those different things. And we really encourage people to take advantage of these resources that are being made free to music folks, to see, what is doing a 2-minute breath work before you go on stage look like? Does that help calm you? Does that help calm you down at the end of the night so you can get some sleep? There are practices and things that can be implemented in our lives that make things a little bit easier. And I really like to think about it as fortifying ourselves
Sure.
for the unknown and the uncertainties. So if you take a little bit of time for yourself for some sort of wellness practice during the day, I've certainly found in my personal life that it helps make everything else kind of flow easier.
Sure.
Everything feels a little more manageable, and high levels of stress will get to you. And so anything that you can do to lighten that load is incredibly helpful, I've found.
Yeah. And I noticed too that in each one of these categories, it wasn't just, you're not necessarily having to have it be just about the mental health issue, meaning not just depression or anxiety or these other elements. There also were the affinity aspects of it could be specific for Black and African American or LGBTQ. Like there are elements to that as well, that if that's a piece of what's important to you, then that is available as well.
Yeah, we really are trying to build resources that resonate. And when we're referring folks out to providers, we want to make sure that they are feeling seen and understood as whole people. And sometimes that means you need a provider that has a background in working with queer folks or comes
Sure.
from a community similar to yours. Those are requests that we should all be advocating for ourselves to have. Unfortunately, the mental health care space is not super diverse. So there is a really high percentage of white mental health providers.
Sure.
But that being said, there are some amazing organizations out there that we work with, including the Black Mental Health Alliance, Queer Therapist Collective, Latinx Therapy, and others that are working specifically on this. So when people need something like that, we have great partners that we can go out to, utilize their referral services, and make sure that you're meeting with a provider that you want to meet with and you want to share and connect with. It makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And that's probably a good pivot to what people can do to get involved. So if you're not necessarily the person seeking the help, what can you do? There's ways to be part of the network. Like I wrote down kind of like some of the different ways. One would be if they are either a person who can lend services and expertise, they're a professional, they could reach out. Obviously, donating funds, there's always a huge way. You can see it right there on the top right there, the donate button. And then also volunteering. So if you didn't have the expertise or the funds, you still always could help out by donating your time.
Yeah, we accept all help, and this is certainly a community care model. So we have been so blessed over the past 4 years to have the support of fans in this, particularly during the pandemic. Fundraising was a tough thing. A lot of our money raised comes from actually inside the music industry itself.
Sure.
So this start your own fundraiser button has been huge for us. People can actually go on our donation platform, create a peer-to-peer fundraising page, and let their friends know, hey, I'm raising money for Backline. Here's what Backline does. This is why it's important to me. Join me in this. If you don't have the ability to donate, that doesn't mean that your friends and community won't be inspired by your passion for this cause. Our referral network is just that. It is our providers. That includes wellness providers, coaches, therapists, all sorts of different things. Growing that is our number one priority so that we're always able to send people out to care. And we've had folks come up with all sorts of events, different things. Here I am, joining you today. Any opportunity to spread the word, to help us show up in different communities. We really are working hard to make sure that people in music know that we exist and that we're here for them. So we appreciate any support in that journey. And then I see venues popping up here. That's a huge piece for us.
Absolutely. I think this is going to be one of the, if there's one takeaway I would ask everybody, like obviously if you're a venue, this seems to be an easy one. If you're just a concert goer, maybe print these out before you go to the show and ask the venue when you show up there, do you have these in the green room?
Send your favorite venue an email and ask about it. They're downloadable right from this page on the site. We've also had folks email us and want to customize them to match the venue branding. We did that. Last year, we were up in about 250 venues. Live Nation has come on.
I can download it. Sorry.
Yep. Live Nation has now come on and made sure that these are backstage in every Live Nation venue. Their support is obviously paramount as we are working to reach more people in the industry. So we are up in about 400 venues, and there's several thousand venues around the country. So we would love to see more people sign on for that program. It's as easy as downloading them.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if that hardest step is the first one, and you're struggling as a musician and you're in that green room and then they're right in front of you as one of those signs, and you can do something as easy as scan the QR code, that might be the difference between saving someone's life and not.
Exactly. And a lot of it is also brand recognition. Like right before the show, you're probably not going to go fill out a form for case management, but maybe you're taking a picture of the sign. Maybe you're taking a picture and sharing it on social media.
Yep.
That's been really helpful way that people are getting the word out. We have artists that are like, this is so cool. I want to make sure all my friends know about it. But the reality is that a few weeks, months, or years from now, there may be a situation in which you need a little bit more support. Our hope is that you think of Backline in those moments. So the more places that we can be, the more places you see our logo and information, hopefully you'll remember that we're here to support you.
Sure. So just real quick, I kind of wanted to run down your bio because it's very impressive. You've basically been at this since you were 17 years old. You teamed up with a surgeon at Duke Hospital and have been helping out hospitals in Africa since then. You still do it to this day, don't you?
Yeah, my last trip there was in November.
So, you got plenty of time, just kicking around, taking care of all the, making the world a better place.
I have a hard time sitting still for too long.
But also involved in, after college, you organized some of these large scale events through the Global Citizens Festival and Global Citizens Earth Day. So you've been donating your time and your effort and your energy to basically all of these different types of very important topics and very important needs. So I just kind of wanted to point that out because you're a heck of a human being, and thank you for doing all of that, and in particular for what you've done here with Backline. I think it's changing lives.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Living a life of service is really the only thing that I've ever done and has ever made sense to me. Both of my parents are nurses, so I credit them a lot with my heart. But also my dad is an insane music fan. And he instilled in me from a very early age that if he could go see a good concert, it would help him to be a better dad, a better husband, a better employee. And I really resonate with that. And so throughout my career and even before, I was going to shows to fill up my cup. And so I've never worked in mental health before Backline. Everything I've done otherwise has been really international focused. But the opportunity to give back to a community that has given me so much is really been the journey of a lifetime. These past 4 years have been just really full circle. I go to shows when I need to pick me up. I put on an album when I'm sad, when I'm happy, when I want to celebrate something. And so this is really an opportunity to apply my knowledge and history to a community that has given me a lot. And I struggle with depression and anxiety and have had a long journey with mental health myself. So I know how hard it is sometimes to get help. But I also know that, working in service to others helps me get out of bed in the morning and not let those things win. So I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to do that through Backline and through the other work that I do.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for that. Thank you for doing this today. Thank you for kind of being part of our Listen to the Dissonance event. And Hilary Gleason, Executive Director of Backline. Important to point out the website is Backline.care. So highly memorable, but also not what you'd expect necessarily.
You could also go to backline.org. We now have that domain too, which makes a little more sense for a nonprofit. So I hope that people will reach out. We're also on all social media at Backline.care, and we are hello@Backline.care. So reach out to us. There's so many ways to get involved, to show support, to get help. So we're really here for it. And again, built on a community of music lovers. So thank you for introducing us to the Listen to the Dissonance community. And we're really so honored to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hilary, for all you do.